Thank you so much for joining me here on LinkedIn Live. My name is Makita Waterman. Today we're going to be going over the power of communication and turning an argument into a peaceful conversation. Now, we all know that there are situations where we can't necessarily control that, but we can also set a clear boundary with a boss, a loved one, a neighbor, a family member, anybody really, as far as communication and keeping it civil and respectful, because in my opinion, arguments deteriorate relationships and can really ruin your reputation. Now, there are people staring at me in the window, so if I keep looking back and forth, I'm going to be looking, sorry, because people have a tendency to watch me as I go live, and that's okay. So Um, if you feel that this conversation can help somebody, please share it. We are going live not just on LinkedIn, but on YouTube and X, formerly known as Twitter. If you have any questions, leave them below. I will do my best to get back to you, either while we're going live or shortly after. And if you have any recommendations on what helps you, please leave them in the comments. So let's get started. I want to talk about the why, not so much the how, why people argue, because sometimes when people start to argue with you, with anybody really, you feel triggered. And quite often you might have the triggered response of becoming defensive, getting louder, more aggressive to prove that you're not going to be taken advantage of, or you're not going to be disrespected. And communication, which is what I'm learning through my coaching sessions, as many of you know with Cecil McIntosh, it's about a conversation. And sometimes we often feel in the moment that arguments are like a fight or flight moment, but they don't have to be that way. So people often like to argue because they don't feel as if they're being understood, or it might not necessarily have anything to do with you. This could be something they experienced in childhood where all they saw were their parents arguing. All they saw was grandma arguing or being aggressive, or grandpa arguing and being aggressive to get their way, to get understood, to get the yes versus the no. So we need to understand that we are all human beings doing the best that we can, living a human and often spiritual experience, and that things that we regularly do as adults are things that we've seen from childhood, adolescence, teenage years, or after that, but usually in your childhood. So just keep that in mind. If somebody tries to argue with you, there's a high chance it's got nothing to do with you, and it has to do a lot with that person's past. Now, arguing can also be an opportunity to remind you or people in general of this person's position. But let's get away from the why, because we are not therapists here. I just want to give you that bit of understanding so that you don't go in life feeling as if people want to take you down, people are after you, people are trying to sabotage you. Yes, there are really greasy people out there who do things like that, but typically it's because of conditioning. It's because there's some kind of weakness within that person that they have not healed from or worked on, which usually doesn't have to do with you, but because you triggered them, either you did it purposefully or not, it results in a conflict, okay? So now we're going to talk about the how to resolve these things, because that's the most important. A lot of us learn about problem solving through life, but life doesn't often teach us the real specific things that we need to do, which really take a little effort than a lot. Now, I'll give you an example. I know somebody personally that I love and care very deeply for. I will never cut this person off because this person is dear to me. This person has helped me throughout my entire life. So I know that this person is argumentative, but it's not my job when this person gets argumentative to get on their level. So I'll just give you an example. I was having a conversation with this person, and they started talking about certain people in their life, like family members, and why this family member doesn't do X, Y, Z, and why this person feels like they should be doing this, and their nephew or whatever should be doing this and should be doing that. But for whatever reason, they wanted to, I didn't agree. And I said, well, that's person's life. The person that you're talking to, that's their life. that's the life they choose to live, and who are we to judge? And then it almost turned into an argument, but I told the person, because their voice started getting loud, their words started to become divisive towards me, and I said, look, I hear you and I understand that that's your opinion, but I'm not going to entertain this conversation if I'm going to be speaking poorly towards, or if you're going to be talking about people that are not here in this conversation to defend themselves. And I ended the sentence. And that that person shared their discomfort a bit, but then they stopped. And setting boundaries for you and for me might often be a repetitive thing that you have to do, because I think a lot of us have this thought in our mind that if we tell somebody something, or if we tell someone we don't like the way that we're being spoken to, that the next time we see that person, that it's going to be like walking through a field of roses and it's going to be perfect. But people are conditioned to do things, which means if someone that you're arguing with is in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 80s, 90s, for 90 years, this is all they know. So for us as people who want to diffuse these conversations, to have this mindset that if we set a boundary, if we tell them how we feel tomorrow, in a few seconds, in a few hours, in a few months, they're going to get it. That person's getting, this is all they know. So just please keep that in mind. So here are some other conversation diffusers that you can do. Let's say you're at work, you're working with a very difficult employee or in business, you're working with a very difficult person who has been known to be very raspy and very aggressive. And so you're having a conversation, they come at you aggressively. A tone of voice, I think, often triggers us as well. And we can often trigger others to create arguments. So we have to take accountability that there's something that we are doing or not doing, whether it's your energy, your vibration, your thought process that is causing this to happen. So I know that's not what a lot of you want to hear. We are not the reason why some people are problematic and argumentative, but we have to take accountability that sometimes there are certain things we are doing, not doing, saying, not saying, that are triggering others to feel that way. So what can we do? So you're in this circumstance, so this is what you can say. This conversation is getting very heated. And I believe that the best way to solve this situation is that we both have a win-win outcome. How about we take a break from this conversation and we have this conversation when this conversation can be in a much more calmer place, a calmer state, whatever it is, and give the person an opportunity to walk away. Now, if you tell somebody that and they start arguing with you, this is my opinion, you have the ability and authority to walk away. Now, when I say that, I don't mean you walk away by, saying explicits and shaming the person, then you walk away. No, you just said this conversation is getting very heated. I believe the best way for us to resolve this problem is it comes out in a win-win outcome. How about we have this conversation when we can have a more relaxed, peaceful chat? And if that person continues to keep spilling out their issues and their anger, you walk away. It doesn't matter if it's a boss, you walk away, because this is very tricky now, right? Because it's quite often that this piece of advice could be given to you or someone else, and they just walk away without letting them know. Now, nobody can ever come back and say, oh, I tried to have a conversation with this person, with you, and you walked away. No, you did not walk away. You gave them the heads up that you set the boundary. You gave an opportunity to have that conversation in a better place, space, and time. They came at you, and now you walked away. So nobody could ever use that against you at work, use that against you in your career by saying all you do is run away like a child from heated conversations. No, you set the boundary. So this is why I'm saying set that boundary, have that conversation, and if it continues, you have the right as a human being who's not going to be disrespected, somebody's, punching back, or therapist, to walk away. Now let's have another example here. Let's say somebody keeps coming at you. Maybe you set that boundary and you walked away. So for whatever reason, this person woke up on the wrong side of bed and now they want to use you as their scapegoat for their personal trauma and issues, right? So this is what you say, and hopefully you say this in a very calm manner or firm manner that doesn't come across as if you're trying to have an up on this person, because I think Jay-Z said in a song on his Blueprint album that never, this is not verbatim, but never argue in public with a fool, because from far away people can't tell the difference between who's the fool and who's not the fool, which means that this statement is really going to help you because it's going to allow yourself to have the upper hand, appear as the leader, appear as the level-headed person, and not go down to the person's level, right? So you could say, I don't appreciate this consistency of you coming at me with the way that you're approaching this conversation. I've told you before that this is not the way that we should be speaking to each other in an organization where we both want to create win-win outcomes and have the team, the company grow. Always kind of bring it back to the company, because these words are very powerful. Because when you say something like, I don't appreciate the way that you're talking to me, I'm a human being, I deserve respect, that can lead to more arguments, right? But when you bring it back to the bigger picture, I don't appreciate the way that you're talking to me. We're trying to come to work to build this company and make it the best that we can to provide, you don't have to sound like a spokesperson, but when you bring it back to the team and the company winning, that person, all of a sudden in their brain, if they have a logical set of mentality antennas in their brain, they're going to be like, uh-oh, they just said company. Uh-oh, they just said team. Uh-oh, they just said the organization. I better not continue this because I could end up in the HR room, right? And again, we have to communicate in a way when these conversations happen so that we don't just protect ourselves, but we also bring it back to the bigger picture, which is outside of our emotions, our anger, our frustration with this circumstance and situation. And again, when you say, I don't appreciate this, then leave it off with, we can have this conversation peacefully at a different time, or we can figure out a way to get other people involved in this situation so we can fix X, Y, Z. What works for you? Now, when you kind of structure these conversations like that, the person, they might be a boss, they might not want other people to get in and see what's going on. So now they are kind of forced to get into, I got to solve this problem because I'm looking unprofessional now. Oh, is this person going to tell the boss? Are they going to tell the executive team? Are they going to tell managers? I don't want to look like the bad person, even though I'm doing bad behavior. So do you see how you structure these conversations to get people to realize that this is not this is not how it's going to happen? This conversation is bigger than the both of us. And it's about the company goals. The other thing that I want to say too is that it's very, very easy for us to run away from people and circumstance and situations. I'm not talking about the toxic work environments, toxic relationships. I'm not saying stay in those kind of situations, because from a long-term perspective, that can deteriorate your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual, financial health. Trust me, if you stay in a relationship or a work situation that is constantly taking you down every day, it can be even every week, every month, it's going to deteriorate you in ways that will be more expensive or more time consuming to fix than not. So I'm not excusing any kind of toxicity. I'm talking about the real world is, and I can't say for myself that I've worked with any group of team or anybody and not dealt with a difficult person. But because I have a coach and because I've always kind of did my best to have neutral conversations, I know how to diffuse these conversations in a way that gets people to calm down, relax, oftentimes they feel embarrassed. And no, I don't shame anybody. It's the words that I use in these fight or flight argumentative conversations that really get people to realize, oh, whoa, wait a minute now. She's not the scapegoat here. I cannot mess with her, because if I do, this language that she's using sounds very, very legal or political or, self-aware. So people will not change themselves, but when they come around you with these kind of skillful ways of talking to them, they will know you're not the one, right? And let's get into some more examples, because I think that this is where the key of success is. Let's say you have a parent. Now we're going to take it outside of work to family, right? You have a mom or a dad that you love dearly, but you know that mom and dad, they're raspy, or they just have a certain way of speaking to you, or your brother or your child. Sometimes these are circumstances you cannot run away from. And if you do, you will regret it, because there will be no lesson learned. And like I said in other live streams, the universe has a way of bringing back that problem that you don't know how to fix in other scenarios, other companies, other love relationships, other family members, other strangers on the street, to teach you that you have to get it right. And this is where many people think, oh, all people from this are like this, or all, situations are like this, or, oh, the world has changed. So it's no, the world has changed, but people in their genetic DNA are still people. So we cannot blame society, economics, race, religion, cultures on why people do what they do. Human beings are human beings, regardless of everything I just stated, right? So we have to take responsibility and know how to talk to these people, because they will come back again and again and again and again and again. And if you wake up thinking that that's all there is to life, then you're not really empowering yourself. You're just allowing life to continue. But when it's like a video game, right? Once you get to the last stage of the video, the last round, whatever they call it, you now know how to play that video game again, almost with your eyes closed, because you were able to go through those pitfalls and things. So some other conversation diffusers. Let's say an argument is, let's say it's someone you've never encountered, but the argument is about to brew. And you can tell that they're huffing and they're puffing and their face is turning red. And you're in your mind, you're like, oh, not today. But you're not going to get triggered. And this is very difficult, everybody. You might try some of these things and it might not happen on the first try, or you might get triggered again and again and again. But it's about repetition, right? So you see this person is about to get angry, and you take a mental or emotional, or literally just take one step back and say, ma'am, I see where this conversation is going, and I feel very uncomfortable right now. I don't want to say anything, and I hope that you wouldn't either, that could make this conversation go sour. So I'm going to walk away, or we can have a peaceful conversation about XYZ. And don't even ask the question after. Just leave it alone. And again, if the person continues to berate you, condemn you, shame you, guilt you, disrespect you, get loud at you, abuse you verbally, you just said those words that I just mentioned, and you have the ability to walk away. Now, this can work in love relationships too. And again, I'm not telling you that if your partner or your child or your mom or dad are having a conversation with you, it's about to turn into an argument, you just split, like you're just out the door. You have to communicate that this is not what it's going to be. And trust me, everyone on the line, I've done this with family members and friends who get a little raspy sometimes, and they don't do it to me anymore. Because quite often I've had to do this multiple times with the same people, and it's conditioning them to know that you either have a peaceful conversation with you or you're walking away. And walking away after you set a boundary and asked for some respect and some peaceful conversations is not disrespectful. walking away before you communicate, we're not going to do this, is disrespectful. And that will cause a lot of friction in your relationships, work, love, whatever your situation is, right? Well, we have, okay, so we're down to literally going over, but let's take one more example. Let's say it's a stranger, right? Now let's say it's a stranger, and let's say you're at a basketball game, your son or daughter's basketball or sports game, and you're cheering, and or you're saying something to your son or daughter and they're playing on the field, and one of the parents say, hey, wait a minute, who do you think you are? So what are you going to do? You have all the parents around you, teachers, students from, this could be an embarrassing situation, and people can take their phone out and start filming you, and you end up on Facebook Live. Let's just be real about how these conversations can go. So what I would say is, wait now. I feel your frustration, and I'm feeling very disconnected right now because I'm trying to give my child some coaching tips on the court, but I don't know how this conversation ended up being, transferred to you. I'm not having this conversation with you, sir, unless we're going to talk about this sports game respectfully. Mind you, there are other children here. We've got other students here. We've got, other impressionable minds here. So what would you like to do? Silence. Do you see what I just did? I just did not make it about me. I made it about, we've got other impressionable minds here watching two adults potentially argue, and I'm not doing this with you. So this is very powerful. Now, again, if that guy starts to get raspy, rah, 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 you have the right to walk away. Go on the other side of the thing and take your children or your wife or your best friend, or if you're by yourself, take your bag and your raincoat and go to the other side of the sitting stand and stay there. And don't associate yourself with, but you just train that person that if they ever see you again at your child's soccer or baseball team meetup or game, that you're not the one. So I hope these tips are helpful. Arguments are very, very difficult because we can get triggered, and we can fight back, and we can get defensive, and we can get louder and more disrespectful and try to determine that we are human beings and we don't want to be disrespected. But that's not really going to help. And if anybody on the line feels that you argue normally and that's your way to get what you want, be heard, please seek a way. I'm not telling you to do therapy, but seek a way to fix that, because a lot of us as adults were raised based on generational things that keep repeating. We see our parents do things and we go through life not healing those issues, not healing that conditioning. And when we get married, we have children, we repeat it in our homes and wonder why our children are acting a certain way, or wondering why, the neighbor keeps coming over and saying your child keeps doing this, or you know what I mean? So let's, as adults, try to break generational mistakes that our parents have done. And remember, our parents, grandparents, great-great-grandparents, they did their best. So let's not go there. Let's not blame mom and dad. Let's not blame grandpa and grandma. Let's take accountability to stop generational issues by working on ourselves, so that if we become caregivers, we become parents, we become godfathers, godmothers, whatever our situations are, we don't have to repeat that history and then have a new generation of children going out there repeating the same mistakes we made, because that's what they saw us do as grown adults, or that's what your neighbor saw, or that's what, you know what I mean? It's not just about family, this is about community here. So I hope that these conversational diffusers are helpful. Some of you are going to do these things and you'll maybe mess up, but it's the repetitive action of doing things differently and recognizing that you can be the one to be the better person that really causes a beautiful moment in time. Maybe you and that person might not be best friends, but maybe you do end up working together peacefully. Or maybe people see what you're doing and they're inspired to be better communicators, right? So this is a ripple effect of creating change, not by expecting people to be better, but for us to be better. And just because you become better, it doesn't mean people are going to do therapy. It doesn't mean people are going to do self-work. It doesn't mean people are going to listen to hours of Tony Robbins and other great motivational speakers. That's not what we should be expecting of anybody. What we should be expecting is to communicate more effectively so that we, if we call ourselves a leader, we walk like one. And therefore we talk like one. And as a result of that, everybody around us sees us as someone different, and you become like a magnet because you know how to talk to people without getting angry, or you run to the bathroom and start crying, and all of these responses, running to the bathroom and crying, leaving a job, leaving a relationship, you can keep leaving. But if it's not a toxic environment or a relationship, again, the universe will bring that person or that situation back to you to remind you, you got to fix this. Because if you don't, then in your brain, you're going to think all XYZ, all relationships have to be this. I always have to be, verbally disrespected at work by my boss. You might leave that company, but then you'll go to the next company and that boss personality will show up in another way. And then you settle. Like our last live stream, you settle, but you don't have to. So I hope these tips work. Let me know what you think in the comments. If there are other ways that you diffuse conversations and arguments, let us know. We can all learn from each other. And again, if you feel that this live stream can help somebody, share it with them. We're about changing ourselves. And as a result of a large group of people globally change themselves, we can continue to change the world in a positive way. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. Have a happy Sunday. Take care.